David Horne is one of the rail industry's most respected leaders. Having started with British Rail, he's witnessed the entire arc of a nationalised railway, then privatisation, and now back again. For the last 7 years, he's run LNER, a publicly owned train operator that has won plaudits for its outstanding customer service. But it hasn't all been plain sailing. There have been challenges, such as the Simple Affairs pilot, which has left some commentators and customers dismayed. I've come to York Station on a busy morning to chat to David about his career, the high points and the challenges faced by LNER, as well as to hear his views on a wide range of topics, including where the industry goes next. Welcome to Green Signals. Thanks so much for joining us. I just wanted to ask first, you've had an amazing career in the railway industry. What's your sort of journey been?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. And yeah, I have had a great career on the railways, and I've been fortunate, I suppose, to have worked with some fantastic people who've given me some amazing opportunities. So I've actually been here now on the East Coast for 10 years. 7 years ago, we started LNER. Before that, I was at East Midlands Trains, but I started my career down in Cornwall, actually in the Telephone Inquiry Bureau in Truro. I then worked in some of the ticket offices down there. I moved to Swindon, worked for Regional Railways for a bit, South West Trains. Soon after, South West Trains was privatised, actually, and I had 20 years working for Stagecoach in its businesses and with its Virgin Rail businesses as well. But yeah, it's been a very varied career in terms of locations and companies, but it's been superb.
And what's marvellous about that is you started with British Rail, you've seen it go through privatisation, you're now seeing it come back out of privatisation, and you've sort of almost like worked through the grades. So you've had that remarkable perspective. Back now in the public sector, which what LNER is, of course, how much have you had to adapt from your time spent in the private sector railway to what you're doing now?
Yeah, it has been about adapting and evolving. And of course, when we started LNER 7 years ago, we weren't really sure how long we were going to be in the public sector. We weren't really sure what we were going to be allowed to do, because it of course had been a bit of a distress transfer to the public sector. East Coast had been in the public sector previously under East Coast for 5 years, and I think that period had been a bit mixed for the business because they'd never been able to invest and plan for the long term. So when LNER started, actually there was a different approach taken, and we had a business plan for the business. We had the new trains coming, and that was a really significant public investment in the East Coast Railway. And so what we've really been focusing on LNER in the early days was making the most of bringing in those new trains. And as time's gone on, we've evolved. We've really focused on the continuing transformation of what we offer to our customers, of how we run the business. And we've brought in some innovations and things like that as part of it. So it's really been about making the best of the situation, recognising that franchising wasn't necessarily perfect. It constrained the leadership team in some ways. And we've tried to ensure that in the last 7 years under public ownership, we've been developing the business in the best way we can.
And to what extent do you feel sort of genuinely empowered? We hear a lot of sort of concern, I suppose, that the Department for Transport, let's be blunt, quite good at, quite like a bit of micromanagement. Do you feel you're able to run this business as the MD day to day and do the things that you think are right for it?
Yes. There is, of course, degrees of micromanagement, as you call it, that do happen. And in many respects, that's quite appropriate because the railway's in receipt of a lot of money from the taxpayer. And colleagues at the DFT have got a job to do, ensuring that that money is being put to good use and we're doing an efficient job. Since we formed LNER, one of the things that we've really focused on is establishing a great relationship with our markets team in the Department for Transport. We sit down with them, we take them through our analysis of the business, of some of the challenges and the opportunities. And we've always had a multi-year business plan. At the start of LNER, we had a 5-year business plan, and we've continued that. So we've had a document that we can take people through, and we can explain why it is that we want to do the things that we want to do. And that's really helped in getting people on board, particularly those within the Department for Transport, and they've supported us to deliver the business plan. And it's worked. You know, yes, there are times when we have to go to the Department for Transport for a permission or approval to do something, and we're no different in that respect to other train operators. But what we have built here is trust between us as a team and our colleagues at the DFT, and it's a proper relationship. And you know, I think the benefits of that are clear.
Now, I know one of the things that you're passionate about, you say this a lot, is that sort of relentless focus on the customer. Now, they're easy words, but they're quite hard to put into practice, I know. How does that belief manifest itself in LNER on a sort of daily basis then?
Well, of course, the origins are the fact that every day we're trying to win customers.
Yeah.
You know, here on LNER, we know that customers are travelling for leisure. They have a choice. Many people still now travel by car between Yorkshire and London, and they travel by car and plane between Scotland and London. And we have to work hard, first of all, to get their custom, to sell the tickets and to get them coming back. So that's very much in the DNA of the business. But we've also got an amazing team here at LNER who I think take a huge amount of pride in delivering a great service to our customers on board and at our stations. We know that this is a great route. We know that we can deliver a great service when we get it right. And we get everybody involved in delivering that great service. There's some legacy, of course, in this. You know, if you go back many, many years, the original LNER made a thing of the style and the service and the speed of what it did. And we're building on those foundations and things that have happened since. We do get a lot of customer insight. So one of the things that we do is we survey our customers every day. We've got a system that literally gives us feedback every day down to individual services. So we're very able to use continuous insight and feedback from our customers to tell us what we're getting right and where we need to improve.
It strikes me that community is very important for you as well. A lot of the press notice that I see come out of LNER are very much about your work in the community. I saw the thing you did the other day with the Coldstream Guards, for instance, which was you know, terrific. I mean, how important is sort of almost like managing that wider stakeholder base?
Well, fundamentally, we're here to serve, aren't we? You know, we're here. We talk about 3 groups of people here at LNER. We talk about ensuring that we've got a great business. It's a great place to work for our colleagues. We invest in our people. We do want it to be a great place to work for our colleagues. We want to be delivering a great service to our customers and doing all the things that we need to do to keep moving forward and ensure that we meet their expectations. But then it's about what we're doing for our broader communities, our cities, the towns, the regions that we serve. It's very much about how we're supporting the charities through our Customer Investment Fund. We've supported over 130 charities since 2018, but we've also switched things like our procurement. So we look to buy local. We look to support the small businesses and the businesses that are based up and down our route, because yes, of course, it's about bringing people to visit the great sort of places like York, like Edinburgh, and sort of spend the tourist pound in these cities. But it's also about what we can do with the money that we can spend and the jobs that we support up and down the route. And these are the 3 groups that we're here to support.
So one of the bumps in the road, perhaps, in sort of, I suppose, stakeholder PR was the decision that was taken to do a fares and ticketing pilot, which I think is still ongoing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which for Newcastle and Edinburgh, certainly, you did away with off-peak and super off-peaks and replaced it with a a flexible ticket that was valid 70 minutes either side of it. Before we just go into that in detail, what was the thinking behind that pilot?
Well, I think we all know, any of us who work in the industry or have been a customer of the industry, know that things need to change with respect to fares and retailing of tickets. It is just become far too complicated over the years, over the past 20 years. When you look at the fare structure that the privatised operators inherited from British Rail, it was relatively simple. There were some yield managed products, but over the years it's just proliferated with the different operators and different ticket types, etc. And a few years ago now, we reflected on that. We took a lot of customer insight and we really embarked upon trying to do something about it. I mean, of course, fares reform has been a thing that many people have wanted to do, but really have avoided doing. And we thought, no, we've really got to grasp this and we've got to try some stuff. The first step was to introduce single leg pricing, i.e. get rid of the return tickets and put in the single leg pricing, which matches what the airlines do. And then simpler fares was really about, right, is there a different way of doing flexibility? Recognising that the 80% of customers were buying advanced tickets. So the old off-peak ticket was really a marginal ticket on our long distance route, certainly.
Okay, that's very interesting. So it's a marginal ticket, but it wasn't a ticket that nobody bought. And what you've kind of ended up with now is a little bit of the end of the walk-up railway, right? So it's a little bit like, if I compare it with the French TGV, which is you've really got to have a reservation on a train in order to travel. Is that the vision?
Well, that was certainly the vision in terms of our long distance routes. And that was what really so many of our existing customers were doing and are doing. They were buying in advance for specific trains with reserved seats. And you know, really, the thing is, if we just think of some of the products that we used to sell, we'll never make it easy for the future customers to use by train. We'll have a fare structure and a retail proposition that is so complicated it puts people off travelling by train. You know, we always talk about the winners and the losers of fares reform, and you know, I'd be the first to admit, you know, there will always be a few losers when it comes to changing the fares, but it's about trying to do something for the greater good, for the future of the industry, that reflects what customers are doing today. And it was a pilot, and both the single leg pricing and the simpler fares are pilots. We are giving these things a go. They are genuine pilots where we're taking customer feedback. We'll feed that back through to colleagues at the DFT, and we haven't yet taken any decisions about what we'll do moving forward.
One of the challenges with it, though, is that now, if you travel to Edinburgh, the only genuinely refundable fare is the full fare, which is £205 each way, right? The 70-minute flex one, you can change the trains, I think, but you can't get it refunded. And things do change. I mean, surely that one thing that needs to be considered is that 70-minute flex fare becoming refundable. Otherwise, we are putting off people who might have been the casual traveller.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that is one of the things that, as we move forward, we would have to consider. Of course, it's come about because the semi-flexible fare is built off the advanced fare. It's you pay a few more pounds on top of whatever the advanced fare is for the train you're travelling on. And of course, the advanced fare is non-refundable.
Yeah.
There's a lot of change of journey flexibility within what we do. Whether you've got the flexible product or you've just got an advanced product, we do see a lot of customers changing the train that they're booked on. And so we've tried to make that process easier as well. But yes, in terms of the refund, it's not something actually that many customers have commented on. You know, again, let's listen to the real customers and we'll take that real insight.
That's a very polite way of putting it, but a fair challenge. Yeah.
But you're right, you know, these things are always about, let's have a go, let's get the sort of, see how it works in practice and tweak it to make sure that we're always getting it right for customers.
That takes us really neatly on then to a hot topic on East Coast, which is, and obviously for LNER, which is open access.
Yeah.
And you had a report commissioned recently by Jacobs, which suggested that over the last 20 years, something like just over, I think, 500 million had been lost in terms of revenue to open access operators.
Yeah.
But I suppose more dramatically, over the next 10 years, over 1.1 billion pounds. What's going to happen next with that? Because I read that, and whether you agree with it or not, you can't ignore it. So what happens next?
Well, I suppose that's really for others to decide. I mean, we wanted to update the work that we'd done previously in terms of to help us with our business planning. We were just going through a cycle of business planning. We wanted to just understand what was the abstraction that we were seeing from open access. Of course, there were various people from the open access community who were saying that their services weren't abstractive and weren't costing the taxpayer a penny. I think we knew the reality, and we wanted to get Jacobs to give a view on that. Now, open access has been here on the East Coast for many years, and I think it is still going to be here for some time yet. And actually, when you look at the difference that Hull Trains, as an example, have made over the years to the connectivity in Hull, all credit to them for doing a great job. It will be down for the DFT and the regulator to work out what to do with not only the plethora of new open access applications that there are now right across the network, but really what is the framework for open access in the future. I think there's a few things that probably need to be looked at, both in terms of abstraction, in terms of some of the ways that the use of capacity on the networks, the best use of that, which I think Lord Hendy referred to in his interview. Yeah. Because one thing's for sure, the current regime has been really good at filling every inch of capacity on the railway, and we know that comes to a detriment in terms of performance. So, we need to consider what is the best way forward. We here at LNER, I think one thing that's really important to point out, because you can get sort of drawn into this debate about open access, the real competitors that we focus on as LNER are the airlines and they're the cars. We spend a lot of time trying to make sure that the offer that we've got, the prices that we've got are competitive with those competitors. We monitor the airline pricing all the time and try and get it right. So, this isn't really for us about competition with open access operators. Much more effort is put in by our commercial and marketing team to compete with the airlines and win people from the airlines and out of their cars.
And that's a very positive outlook. I fully accept that. But it must be quite hard when you look at, say, somebody like Lumo, who is offering, I think the single fully flexible fare to Edinburgh is half yours. It's about £90. You must sort of scratch your head a bit and kind of go, how are they doing that?
Well, I think we know how they're doing that. I mean, they're not paying as much for their rolling stock as we do. You can have a debate about the amount that they pay for track access. But it's interesting, of course, because the proposition that First Group put back in 2015, 2016 to the regulator was that Lumo was really about getting customers from Morpeth in Northumberland. It wasn't so much about Newcastle to London or Edinburgh to London, but I think the actual figures show that they have abstracted more from LNER than was projected. That will be one of the things for the clever people in ORR and DFT to reflect upon and debate.
We had Ian Yowett on the show recently. He was terrific, exactly as you expect, sort of punchy and very clear. One of the points he made, which I thought was very valid, was it was about seat capacity. There just aren't enough seats at times. And actually, I came up on the 7:30 from London King's Cross to York this morning, and thought, actually, maybe he's got a point. I mean, it was pretty full, which you will be delighted about, I'm sure. But if Lumo weren't here, those people would presume, I mean, where would the capacity come from, I suppose? Arguably, there's more than enough to go around, would be his argument.
Well, when Lumo got the track access rights for their new services, it was in the context of the new timetable and the expansion of services on LNER as well. It was Virgin Trains East Coast at the time, but it was part of a package where we were going to go from 5 trains an hour to 6.5 trains an hour, and Lumo would get their services as well. So now they've managed to launch their services before we've managed to launch our new timetable. But Ian's absolutely right. This is a growing industry. It's remarkable how we've bounced back after the pandemic. We continue, even in these quite challenging economic times, to see really good growth in terms of passengers using the East Coast route. And that's why actually we're so keen to introduce the new timetable at the end of this year, because that fundamentally means many more seats and it provides our foundation for future growth.
So, I mean, I summarise it, I might be putting words in your mouth, but forgive me, sort of like, absolutely fine, everybody's welcome as long as we don't mess up performance and it's a level playing field. Is that fair?
Absolutely, and I am sure that Ian would also say he wants a level playing field.
Yeah.
Of course, Ian and I go back a bit. He worked at Penzance Station a year or two before I worked down there, and yeah, he's a great character.
He is. I had no idea about that. That's a brilliant little fact. That takes us beautifully on to the new timetable. So there's a plan for a big new timetable coming in December. What can customers look forward to in December?
So the East Coast has been a growing railway. If you take our services, we're now carrying 35–40% more passengers than at the time of the last timetable change, which was back in 2011. So we need some extra capacity, extra seats to carry those extra customers. We want to provide the foundation for future growth and make sure we've got capacity, because there are times on this railway when we have just got no space and we need extra capacity because people are trying to use the railway. Fast services throughout the day, every hour between London and Edinburgh is going to be the flagship. We're not quite doing 3 hours 59, which they were doing with the 225s back in 1992 for a while. But we're trying to get the London-Edinburgh journey time down to around 4 hours, 10 minutes.
God, that's remarkable, isn't it? I mean, it was sub 4 hours. I mean, you can understand why some people say we might be gone a bit backwards, but of course it's a much busier railway now, isn't it? It's
a much busier railway. I mean, back in the day, that we're talking about 100 trains a day, and we're going to be running 200 trains a day. We run 160 now, and of course it's got a lot busier at every point along the route. We've got the GTR services and working in with those through Welling. And just as an example, at the north end, of course, we've got the Northumberland line services coming in and out of Newcastle. And we've got a pretty busy section on the approach to Edinburgh as well. Yeah. So, I think it's a much busier railway, but we think we can still do it in 4 hours 10. So
I wanted to ask you one other thing, though, about capacity and performance. I'm just going to read you something that Network Rail's route director, Paul Rutter, for the East Coast said in a letter to the ORR only in March, just gone. He said to the ORR, implementation of the ECML ESG timetable for December 2025, which received formal go-ahead from the Department for Transport on the 12th of December 2024, so just 6 months ago, will lead to notable deterioration in punctuality for customers. Not may do, will do. I mean, we could end up having a pretty upset Secretary of State in 6 months' time, couldn't we?
I think the performance trade-off with this timetable has been around for a long time. There's a long history, of course, to the East Coast timetable change, and we've now got the go-ahead to launch it on a specific date later this year. But if you go right back, even to 2014, to the documents that informed the access rights decision in 2016, early 2016, the impact on performance is there. We all know that running a railway like this, running the UK network probably more widely, it's a trade-off between speed, capacity and performance. And back in 2014, 15, I think actually the decision was taken that the route needs a bit more capacity and the journey times were attractive, but that would come at a cost of performance. You can see that in the letters that were written from Network Rail to the ORR back in 2014-15 that are still on the ORR website.
They are.
So, you know, that's the context. Nothing really has changed. Actually, we're going to do this timetable change with a bit less infrastructure than that was envisaged back in 2015. But a lot of work is taking place on a cross-industry basis on performance improvements to deliver this timetable successfully. We've got a group now, a task force formed with people taking part from right across the industry to ensure that we're doing all the things that we need to do to improve performance and launch this successfully, launch the timetable successfully, and then run it well thereafter. I mean, there's a number of things that we've already done, and there'll be a number of things that we'll be putting in place. Performance is, of course, really important, but capacity is important, journey times are important. We've got to get all of these things right, and we're working really hard right across the industry to get it right.
I don't think anybody would doubt, I hope they wouldn't anyway, that there will be a real effort going into making this work, and there's good collaborative working going around. But I suppose it's really just when the route director of Network Rail is that bold and says it will lead to a notable impact in performance, I suppose you fear the worst, really.
I don't think we need to fear the worst. I think we need to be, it's about being realistic about the challenge and about actually some of the results that we might see once the timetable is launched. If you go back to 2015, Network Rail, the letters that Network Rail were writing to the regulator were saying that there'd be a drop in ppm at the time of up to 2%. So we've known for some time that the extra capacity is going to have a little knock-on effect to performance. I think Paul's really reminding everybody that that's still very much the case. That's why we all need to focus on the things that we do to ensure that we mitigate that performance detriment in the best way that we can. We've got lots of modelling now which tell us that performance is going to get worse, so we know where to focus, and that's what it's about.
Now, one of your Zoomers is going past. We've timed this to perfection because when we were talking about open access and Lumo, well, Lumo set went past at that very moment, so it is perfect. How are the Zoomers doing? I mean, they may have some initial teething issues into performance, but are you pleased with where performance has got to them with them now and reliability?
Yeah, so fundamentally they are great trains. You know, when we had the old, particularly the 225 trains, we would see failures in service pretty regularly, and the Zoomers have got so much redundancy in their systems that we don't see anything like that from the Zoomer fleet. They do have some challenges, and reliability has dipped over the last 12 months, and Hitachi are working really hard to turn that reliability round. But we're talking about relatively small scale delays, actually. There's been a great amount of work done to improve the availability of the Azuma fleet as well, because that was one of the challenges in the early years. We had a fleet of 65 trains, and we weren't getting very good availability out of them. We've worked together with Agility and with Hitachi on depot investments, on the exam schedules and things like this, so we're getting better availability as well. And yeah, I mean, they're going to be around for many years yet, and they have absolutely given us the foundation for our success so far as LNER, because they've been so reliable, because they've given us the extra seats, and frankly, because customers like them.
And given that they're going to be around for quite a while, and because we need customers to like them, is there anything we can do with the seats? I mean, they are ironing board hard, and I'm pretty good, but even on the run up from the King's Cross this morning, I did get up thinking, I'm a bit stiff.
Yeah, so a couple of things that we're doing with the seats. So first of all, we're taking some short-term action, because actually the Azuma trains are 5 years old now.
So it's remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah. So we're going to be taking some short-term action to ensure that The seats have still got the right amount of squishiness in them and things. We're going to be talking to Agility and Hitachi about the long-term future of the fleet, and what options are now around in terms of seating that we will be looking at. I mean, it's going to take a bit of time, of course, to put that all together. But yeah, these trains are going to be here well after I retire, and they'll be around for many years yet. So we've got to have a long-term strategy.
I said that about the Pendolinos, David, and I've now discovered they're well past midlife, probably.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how time goes. One of the real things with rolling stock, though, is homogeneity, flexibility, making sure that you can have as much flexibility as possible. So I confess, I sort of almost dropped my coffee when I read you'd ordered a subfleet of 10 units from CAF. And there's nothing about CAF, by the way, right? It was just the fact there's a tiny subfleet of a complex train. So why do that? Particularly since Hitachi now, of course, have got a tri-mode solution.
We had to run an open procurement for those new trains. So really, we needed a replacement fleet for the 225s. We went to the market because that's what we need to do when we procure anything of that scale and of that value. We wanted the trains to be a little bit different to the trains to the Azuma fleet, in that we wanted more bi-mode capability. We actually asked the market, could you also give us some battery functionality to the trains to improve the sustainability, environmental credentials of the fleet even more. And there were a few things that we wanted to do inside so that customers with bikes, with pushchairs, etc., found it a bit easier as well. So we weren't going out saying we wanted just more of the same. We wanted a few tweaks, and we received tenders back from several manufacturers. CAF and Hitachi were amongst those, and we assessed them in the normal way against the criteria that the suppliers knew, and CAF came out on top, and so that's why we placed the order with CAF. The operational flexibility point is important, and it was factored into that assessment criteria. But at the end of the day, you've got to run the procurement process objectively, and through that process, CAF was successful.
And will they be, as an Adelante goes past on a Grand Central train, I can't get over how busy this station is these days. It really is quite remarkable, and great to see, by the way. Will the CAF trains be assembled in South Wales, or are they going to be built in Spain?
Yeah, so the majority are going to be assembled in South Wales. I think the first couple are being assembled in Spain, and then they're going to be maintained at Neville Hill. Okay.
Because that kind of UK content and social value is important as well, isn't it? So that's good. That's good to hear. Just to ask you about, very briefly actually, on electrification, because this whole sort of battery and hybrid has become almost like de rigueur at the moment. It really is in vogue. And it's fine, but every time you carry a battery or a diesel engine around, you're carrying unnecessary weight when you're under the wires. And the East Coast Main Line is, I know you've got some diversionary stuff, but it's mainly under the wires. Do you think we're potentially, as an industry, taking a slightly wrong turn by finding solutions to the not being wires everywhere instead of putting the wires up?
I think we're just responding to the situation we find ourselves in. I think we'd all love more electrification, but the reality is electrification, because of the cost of doing it, hasn't been proceeding at the pace that maybe we were expecting. At the same time, battery technology is coming on, and so it's right that we use the technology to deal with the situations we've got. We wanted more bi-modes because at the moment we haven't got enough. When we've got engineering work and we end up going around the diversionary routes, whether it's on the joint line through Spalding and Lincoln or the Durham coast, etc., we end up having to actually cut back some of our normal diesel services out to Harrogate and places in order to resource those diversions. So That's why we're going out. We went out to the market to get more bi-modes. They're actually going to be the tri-modes. But long term, I mean, it would be great to see more electrification. Leeds to York, of course, has been one of those bits on the network which probably should have been done back in the 80s and the 90s, and it's now being done. And I can't wait for that, because it's bits like that.
It'd be great. It'd be
that
great.
are gonna make such a difference.
And credit where it's due, David. And one of the things that LNER are brilliant at is that you try and keep people on trains.
Yeah.
So, the diversionary strategy, you keep route knowledge up, and so on and so forth. And that is, I think to your great credit, actually, because even if there's a time penalty, people would rather not get on the dreaded bus.
Absolutely.
And that's very much part of your ethos, clearly.
Yeah.
I want to finish by just asking you about the future.
Yeah.
We're just about to have the biggest change in 30 years, really. And without wishing to make you sound or feel a bit old, because you're not at all, but there aren't many people who were there in the British Rail days who are here now. So you've kind of seen it all before. As you look forward to Great British Railways, what do you think the real opportunities of that are going to be?
So clearly, we've got a railway today that is many, many parts. And I think we've just got to take ourselves back into the customer's shoes and remember that those customers who don't use the railway day in, day out, who use the railway only occasionally, must find it incredibly complicated at the moment with the different operators on top of the different fares. We all know how to sort of get our heads around a railway timetable, but many customers don't. So I see Great British Railways as being about helping us to deliver simpler, better service to our customers so that we can attract more people to rail. We do need to be more joined up as an industry. We've been really lucky over the past 7 years as LNER to build a really close working relationship with our colleagues at Network Rail. One of the fantastic decisions that Network Rail took back in 2019 was to create the East Coast route. So we've got a team in the East Coast route who are really trying to do the same thing as us at LNER, which is to run trains at high speed for the length of the country. So that's provided a great sort of basis on which to work closely. We had the coffee cup run yesterday, where we go from Edinburgh to London, and all the different area engineers get on and off, and we just talk about all the things that we've been doing, have they worked, and all the things we're going to do. And it's about getting together and just putting the contracts away. Forget the contracts. Let's just focus on the things that we need to do to deliver a great railway. It is a challenge because we've got an old railway here, and there are many things that face us day in, day out on the East Coast. A lorry on a level crossing is one of the highest delay incidents we've had so far this period. We've got a lot of level crossings on the East Coast main line. We've got quite old infrastructure as well in places, and the overhead line of course as well. So we only get the most out of it by working in a more joined up way as an industry.
And what are the challenges of GBR going to be? Not so much what do you fear, but what do you think we need to ensure doesn't happen?
Well, we need to ensure that GBR releases the enterprise that exists within the railway. If you think about privatisation in the early years, it became a really enterprising time. We had the West Coast upgrade and the Pendolinos and the cross-country transformation as probably the flagship examples that Virgin were leading. We had Chris Garnett arrive and Jim Sherwood arrive on the East Coast with GNER. Those were all hugely enterprising steps that got the railway from a period of gradual decline into one where we've seen huge growth since. And we've got to ensure that in Great British Railways moving forward, we don't only, we've got to make sure we keep that enterprise, but we've also got to fuel that enterprise and ensure that we continue to do things that are innovative, that we try different stuff, fundamentally to get the railway even busier than it is today. We want more freight on the railway, of course, we all agree with that. We want more customers to be using the railway. I don't think British Rail was necessarily great at that. There were some great things that BR did in places, but we need to be doing that a lot more. We do need to get better as well at looking after our customers.
Yes.
Yeah, I think our politicians are right for us, right to challenge us at times on some of this. But we know as an industry, we can respond to that challenge and deliver a great railway in the future.
What a wonderfully uplift. That's brilliant. And I love that word enterprise. I shall shamelessly pinch that, I think that's really good. A number of people have said that one David Horne could well be a great leader for GBR. I mean, that must be a bit flattering.
It is flattering. I mean, I don't get, I don't respond to any of this stuff because I've been hugely lucky to just do the jobs that I've been asked to do over the years. I'm been here now for 10 years and I'm still having a fantastic time here on the East Coast. I say to anybody who joins LNER and joins the railway, it is a great industry to be part of, whatever role you're doing. Yes, there are some really tough roles within the industry. I just think about some of the colleagues that get out every night, that get out up in a cherry picker to fix the overhead line and do some of the maintenance. There's some really unpleasant jobs on the railway. And I've been really lucky over the last however many years at the opportunities I've had. And to be honest, whatever opportunities are there in the future for any of us, I just encourage everybody to get involved and do your bit to move this industry forward, because it's a great industry.
It is a great industry. You're right to point out those heroes who do amazing jobs all the time. I've certainly loved my time in it. You're clearly enjoying yours. Good luck with everything else you're planning to do with LNER. Good luck with the timetable in December. I'm sure we'll speak again soon, but for now, David, thank you very much.
Thanks very much.